prophecy?
Oh, you can talk about it. I don't know about it though.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, this is Valencia Benavides, and we're doing Revived and Restored Building Communities. I have our guest here today is Tammy McMullen, and Cynthia is out today, but we are going to talk more about where we started with our rock situation and the burdens that we carry. We spoke a little bit about it last week, and we just wanted to fill you in on what we kind of discovered and the little activity that we did at the lake. Actually, on Tuesday this week. So anyway, so we all carry burdens, obviously, and that's something that the Lord doesn't want for us, right? The scripture says his burden is easy, right? And so we just were talking about that, and we had written down on some rocks different things that we felt like we were carrying that God wanted us to unburden ourselves of. And then we carried those around for an entire week, which is really inconvenient, by the way. It's really inconvenient. And so everybody was just sort of commenting on what their experience was, just even physically having to carry those or like explain it to people when they were on their desk at work, or they were trying to hold it while they were typing, because technically we were not supposed to like really keep them in a bag, or I mean, as far as like our purse or our pockets a whole lot. We were supposed to have them on our hands as much as possible, which was really challenging. And so anyway, but people were sharing that there were opportunities for a lot of people who don't necessarily have the same perspective to kind of ask questions about that and to share it, which was interesting.
That sounds powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially you're trying to type and you've got it right there.
It's awkward, right? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that, and people were talking about how loud they are when they fall. So if you like drop them, or like I had them in my lap while I was driving, because it couldn't be in my pocket, and I was trying to keep it on my person and be aware of them as much as possible. And I turned a corner and they slid off my lap and into the floor. And it was like a huge crash. I mean, they like announce themselves. So all the time you were like very, very aware. Or if they were missing, you realized, oh gosh, I'm supposed to be carrying these around. Like you were just aware of them in a way that you would not think. And I had like pockets in sort of like a robe that I had on one night. And I just went to sleep with them in my pockets, and I rolled over in the middle of the night, and there's these burdens there. And I was like, wow, it's really crazy to think of that as like these emotional things that don't leave. Right. So, so yeah, it's kind of absurd when we think of it as a physical thing. But yet we do it emotionally and spiritually all the time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, maybe you might want to speak into something related to that before we launch into what we did.
Sure. So our pastor did this one time, and he said he had a huge suitcase up on the stage, and same kind of concept, everywhere you went, he was pulling it.
Yeah.
He had to come over here to go see his wife. Okay, I'm going to pull it over here. And you had to go over here to do this. He's going to have to pull it over there. And I was thinking, that's how it is with smoking, with drinking, with whatever else it may have been that you may be doing,
right,
or have done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was especially the smoking, because I was like, God, I get tired of carrying the cigarettes. I get tired of having to make sure, oh, do I have that with me? Oh, do I have that with me?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and you couldn't leave without it, because I mean, you don't want to have to stop to buy another one, or you don't want to have to stop to make sure you don't have it. And what if I am going to need it, right?
Right.
You get like anxious, and I mean, it's like a domino effect of the emotions behind it, right?
And like it feels like it's supposed to be like a freeing thing,
right?
It frees you. It helps you relax, right?
Yeah, especially the smoking. Yeah. when it goes straight to your nervous system,
Yeah.
the nicotine,
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I felt after freedom. After freedom, freedom is a conference class that we do at the other church, or we have done at the other church, and that's what it was about. It was about you get free from all these things that have burdened you, and but the interesting thing is once you do let go of them, what do you put in place of them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's crucial.
Yes, very. Yeah. And that's where I am even now, right? Because I am finding things, new things
Mhm.
to put in place of
Put in their
those.
place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Where the smoking before, at one point I was even putting candy and I was like, oh, that's worse,
Yeah.
Let me just gain the weight and then I'll have another burger,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I'm starting with gum and I'm finding healthy things to eat. I'm snacking on this, I'm doing that, going for walks, doing the things I'm supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And you're putting those healthier things in place of even scripture, right?
Yeah.
And anytime I want a cigarette or I think of a cigarette or the smoking device, I bring it like I bring every thought into the captivity of Jesus Christ, right? Because I'm like, if I can put him in place of it, the thought even of him, then it'll be taken care of.
Mhm.
He said he would take care of it for me.
Yeah.
And it was such a burden to me that I had to give it over. I have to put him in place of it, right?
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the goal,
right.
is that he can fill it. And I think actually one of the ladies, so we went out to Lake Pflugerville and we got all of our rocks, our little bags of rocks. And I'm sure people thought, what are these people doing? Um, but it was okay. And so it was getting kind of like later in the day and the sky was just, it was a little bit starting to get dark. It was really beautiful outside. Amazing day, but it had been raining and there was all this weird stuff that happened with everybody just to try to even get there. And we were meeting under a pavilion to try to stay out of the rain. But then finally it like kind of broke up. It stayed cloudy, but we got out there and everybody just started sharing. And we realized too that a lot of our rocks were the same.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of our rocks were the same. And so
But you didn't did you draw the rocks together or you did them at home?
some of them were done
Okay.
together and some of them were done at home.
Wow.
So yeah, because some people added some things, or like some people had joined remotely because they were out of town, and so they did theirs at home. Yeah, but there was overlap a lot, and I think it's just because our human experience can be really varied, but a lot of what we struggle with is the same.
Right.
That's just the reality, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, like
so,
fear,
oh,
or yeah,
fear.
yeah, yeah,
Like fear
yeah.
was in there for everybody.
Okay.
Rejection
Sure.
was a big one.
Mhm.
And you don't think about that as much. And then someone else had abandonment, which is kind of co-laboring
Oh
with
yeah.
rejection, I feel like, there was a lot of things and there were tears, like people talking about it, because those are things you carry and you don't always say out loud. Saying it out loud or seeing it written like that, like, makes you really aware of
Yeah.
how you're actually feeling, what you're carrying. And so everybody had some pretty powerful reasons why those were there, and also connections to like their personal histories about how those came to be.
Sure.
And so one by one, we didn't go in a row and everybody say, all their things. Like if someone had a fear rock, then a lot of people started kind of joining in. Yeah, I've got that too. And just the fact
Nice.
that nobody was alone standing there in what they were carrying.
Mhm.
There was commonality and there was support from everybody. And everybody had like words of encouragement
Yeah.
for each other too. Like, oh, that is not at all how I view you. I mean, everybody was like, it's interesting to see what people think inside. Like, our monologue internally is different than the way the world sees us, because it's not always influenced by Jesus, right? There's a lot of other stuff.
Mhm.
There's the devil on your shoulder, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's all the voices from your past that are telling you who you are. And a lot of times those things aren't at all who you are, particularly not after walking with God for a while. And people change. It is transformative if you allow it to be.
Yeah.
It as you get healing, you're so different. And so, but you still feel like you're not
Oh, yeah.
sometimes. You still carry those things around. So I felt like it was really revealing. So we chunked those things. And some would like, some were like just barely going in, and some were like launched way out there. Some were like hitting the other. They had like kind of some boulders along the shoreline just to, for erosion control and stuff. They were like crashing into those and exploding. Like one of them like totally blew into bits when
Oh,
it hit
wow.
another rock. And we were just like, wow, it's even interesting just how you get rid of them. Like
Yeah.
it looks totally different. And so everybody did their rocks, and then we came back together at the end and prayed. And one of the prayers, like you said, was, Jesus, come and fill that space.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately what we need. We don't need a hole.
Yeah.
We don't want there to be a hole left behind. And so, and I feel like we burden ourselves when we have a hole there, because it's always a God-shaped hole, right?
Yeah.
And as humans, I feel like it's our nature to feel full and fulfilled. And when we're not walking with God, we'll put all kinds of things into that place, which is kind of what you're talking about with like various addictions and stuff like that, right? Those frequently are the things that go
Right.
into that hole, whether that's to numb us so we don't
Mhm.
feel the burdens that we've been carrying, so that it numbs you out to the voices that are critical, right? Or maybe even your circumstances. There's just so many things. It's really easy to do that. I mean, the world like pretty much is suggesting that, whether it be food or drugs or alcohol or whatever it is.
Yeah, relationships on your phone.
Oh, yeah. The phone.
The phone itself.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's insane.
All you need
Scrolling.
is that, just that. Yeah. All
Yeah.
you need is the God phone.
Yeah. I mean, it's just easy to do all kinds of things. And even just like what seems to be like, you always hear a good thing. It may be a good thing, but not a God thing.
Right.
And I feel like there's a lot of that stuff, just like busyness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of people who are volunteering and doing wonderful things, but they like never sit still. There's no quiet. And so like, I feel like I can be a little bit that way if I don't watch it.
Mhm.
But that has been a burden, right? That is a burden because I tend to carry more than I should. I think probably, I don't know that's probably a deep dive. We could probably sit on that for a
Yeah.
minute. I'm like, I don't even know all the reasons probably, why I feel the need to perform so much, but that definitely is like an issue.
Yeah.
There's a perfectionist strain in there that I don't love about myself. I've learned how to let a lot of that go, but it certainly rears its head.
Yeah, it does creep up.
Yeah.
Mine does too. I was doing last time I was talking to Cynthia. We talked about my name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the name that I was given was my dad named me,
Mm-hmm.
and but my mom would call me everything outside of my name.
Oh, interesting.
You
Okay.
know, so I was always like, okay, so I am mistake, I am rejected, I am, you just put it on there, right? But God says that we are His, right? And when you look at the I am statements, those are the most powerful things you can do for yourself to rebuild yourself back up, right?
Yeah.
After you've been torn down like the past that most of us have, right? And I was always thinking, okay, Lord, so what is it that you're trying to tell me? And He said, the other day I looked up my name and sent you. She gave me most of it.
Yeah, she's really into that.
Oh yeah,
she's
yeah.
really into the
Very
name studies.
namesake, yeah. But I looked up Lynn, my middle name.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and it's a flowing fountain, like a flowing water, basically.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, what? Get
That's
out. Well, my
so
first
good.
name, Tammy, it means palm tree. A palm tree by flowing water. And I'm like, palm trees are really good trees, especially in storms.
Yeah.
They can bend over all the way. You've seen them on the
Yeah.
hurricanes,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I've got strength in me.
Yeah.
I've got endurance, right? I can go through some storms and make it out on the other side.
Yeah.
And the living water I have is from Jesus. I'm like, yes, I love my name. Never mind. you know,
I love that.
yeah. But it took me like going through it to say, okay, what is it that you're trying to tell me, Lord?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what was it that the world was trying to put on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
From my past or the rejection or whatever, the hurt, whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
All that
Yeah.
back there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Your burdens.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I described it to my son like this one day. I said, pretend that you're Santa Claus because everything you're carrying is in that bag.
Mm.
And it's a bag of hurt that you're carrying around. It's a bag of resentment. It's a bag of anger. It's a bag of whatever. And you're just steadily everywhere you go, like
Mm-hmm.
you like your
Yeah.
rocks.
Like the rocks.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's the perfect way to put it. But we have to replace all of that. And I love that you guys did the prayer, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting too to think in terms of like what we're confessing, like you said. Those are things that like our confessions fill
Yeah.
those holes, like you said. That you know what is God saying? What is my name? I think our name is obviously like a confession that is spoken like day and night over us.
Mhm.
And so I feel like it kind of balances things out from the things that we feel and think about ourselves that are not in line with God's opinion of us.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those hurt places come from things that have been said, just like you said. There were all kinds of names that were given you, right? You were called all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And those do become burdens. They're like curses, right?
Sure.
It becomes like a curse. But and that writing it out and really realizing, like in a visual, tangible sense,
There you go.
what those have meant,
Yeah.
you know, the weight that they carry.
Mhm.
But on the flip side of that, when Jesus comes in that place and fills it in, and you can start confessing different things and even making some things tangible, maybe even, right? Like a lot
Yeah.
of people do, you know, their word, like they'll get a word for the season that they're in or
Right.
whatever, and they
Yes.
put it up on their mirror, or they've got scripture and all that kind of stuff. It is important to remember those truths,
Yeah.
right? Because it's kind of like a salve that starts to heal those difficult places.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when we have those bad spots,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we have a tendency to reach back and grab something from our past,
Mm-hmm.
the fear, the rejection, the hurt, the whatever it may have been, the anger, even. We reach back and we grab something, but God is saying, no, 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 I want you reaching forward, right? Because when you're reaching forward, then you're looking for something new, which is what He
Right.
does for us. He renews us, and our mind is renewed. So I've found myself recently doing that, like not looking to the past for anything that's familiar, because I'm like, okay, that didn't work before,
Right.
right? So whatever didn't work before, whatever I was comfortable with, I don't want that anymore, right? I have to be so uncomfortable that all I'm looking for is something that's ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a little show called Utopia. It's a movie with Chris Black.
Utopia?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever
Or
seen that.
7 Days in Utopia is what it's called.
Okay.
It's a golf game.
Yeah.
But this guy is, this kid has a problem with his golf game.
Mhm.
He goes to this place. This older man helps him. Robert Duvall
Okay.
helps him. And the way that he helps him through it, though, it's all a God thing, right? And he's like, if you can keep the game in front of you, then you know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
You get to visualize what your game is going to be, right? But you got to keep it in front of you. You can't keep looking back there, right?
Right.
Because whatever you've done, it's already done.
Right.
It's almost like the rear
Can't
view
unring
thing.
the
You see
bell.
how the rear view mirror is so small,
Mhm.
Well, the windshield is huge. What's in front of you? What's in front of you?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And I'm like, I always keep my windshield real, real clean. And I'm like, I want to
You're
see
like,
everything.
I can
Yes.
see all the things. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's wisdom in that. Um, oh my gosh. So, um, I also just wanted to share too. I feel like now, granted, it's only been a couple of days since we cast our burdens into the sea, so to speak. Um, but I have noticed a little more peace and a
Nice.
little bit more calm, um, a little more patience to endure some hard things. And I don't think I have felt as frustrated. Frustration and anger were two of my biggies. Um, I think that the enemy, like everything started out really good and things were really like impressively calm at my house with my children and everything else. I was like, wow, like I'm totally feeling this whole
Right,
thing.
right.
And then
Like, I'll take that trade.
things started getting rocky and I was like, man, what is going on? And you're like, okay, like Lord, you're going to have to help me just maintain so that I'm not convinced that I'm carrying the burden again. Like sometimes too, you just have to remember, like, even if we have a momentary emotion, like it doesn't have to be our burden to carry. We can also let it go
Yeah.
and just keep letting it go because I do think it is an exercise that's continual, right?
Oh, yeah,
You have to
yeah.
keep
Well,
surrendering those burdens.
I mean, I think in Galatians it talks about it. Colossians talks about it, putting on the new man, putting off the old man, right? So it is a continuous thing, and he speaks about it in multiple books. So
yeah,
I mean, yeah, it's
a real thing,
it's a
and it's
yeah,
continual, which is like makes you feel like, man, do I ever get to the end of this? Well, you do, but
yeah.
it's
Eventually, we'll get there.
it's not on this side of
So
heaven.
this guy, I think it was a guy the other day, and he was talking about he was talking about how many days we have on the earth,
Mm,
approximately, right?
right.
Bible says 70 years. That's what he's made it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you take whatever your age is and however many days till 70, that's how many wake ups you have. That's how many times you'll get to share Jesus. That's how many opportunities you have for whatever it may be to tell your
Wow.
kids to do whatever. And I thought that is so, so good because if I wake up and I have 555 more days, then that's all I have, right?
Wow.
I mean, that's not my number, but it's, you think, wow, okay, 555 more times. I'm going to get up and I'm going to share the Lord, or I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this with my family.
Yeah. It's funny. Do you see the number that you chose? 555,
No,
555. That's the
no.
number, like 5 is the number of grace biblically. So it's just
Really?
interesting that you said that.
No,
Yeah.
I just said a number.
Yeah. So anyway, five would be like triple grace. So
Really?
mhm.
Nice.
Yeah. So see, you're hearing him. You just didn't realize it. So there's grace for that too. Like
Okay.
he's got you.
Yeah.
I mean, even in like you need to be focused to do things. You don't be frivolous with your time because people can be.
Right.
We lose opportunities, I think, sometimes. But it's nice to know that he's covering that with grace too.
Yeah.
I love that. Any final thoughts?
Um, what we sow, we'll reap, right? So
Mhm.
if we're sowing discord or we're sowing anger, we're sowing resentment or
Mhm.
hurt or rejection or the pain, that comes from our past, right?
Mhm.
Because there is a lot of that. On a serious note, there really is. And it's not easy to let go because we are so familiar with it and we get comfortable in that. Sometimes it feels good to be angry. It feels good to be on that side and be like, I just don't care right now.
Yeah, it's like prideful.
Yeah.
Kinda. There's like a pride to it.
Right.
You feel
Right.
like you're owed the
And you're justified in it.
yeah, you are. And frequently you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
But is
And
it benefiting you?
yeah, by what statues you are for, yes, you definitely are,
Yeah.
but are you going to stay a victim
Yeah.
or are you going to be an overcomer?
Yeah.
You
Do you
know?
choose to get out of it? Because
Yeah.
it's totally a burden to
Yes.
carry
Like you
anger
said, it is
around.
a rock and it is
Mhm.
weighing you down.
It is.
Yeah.
it creates less space for other good things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just encourage everybody out there, do this exercise. It is really amazing for you to see tangibly the things that you're carrying around, and to feel the weight of them, like
Yeah.
daily, all day long. And if you happen to like not do it perfectly and you sit it down and you're nervous about the fact that you didn't have it in, on your person every moment, just the fact that you are even having to be aware of their absence, to go back and get them, and then to hold them again, and then to have them crash or whatever they do. It is just kind of eye-opening to see just something so present,
Wow.
that has a name, puts a name to something that you're struggling with. And it's really freeing to be able to throw it. So I would encourage you to throw off your burdens this week. Anyway, so this has been Revived and Restored. Thank you, Tammy,
You're
for
so
being
welcome.
here
Anytime.
with me today. And if you need to get in touch, you can do that at Beloved Unveiled at protonmail.com. Beloved Unveiled at protonmail.com. And we hope that you guys have an excellent week of freedom, and that you are revived, and that you're restored, and that you will be building into your communities. I hope that everybody's finding a way to get connected out there.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference.